The Arizona sun beat down with a relentless fury. Dust devils danced across the cracked earth, mocking the parched landscape. For Tobias Crow, each sunrise brought a fresh wave of anxiety. His ranch, once a thriving spread, was now struggling, withered by the relentless drought. The creek that usually gurgled merrily through his land was now just a dry, dusty scar. Tobias squinted at the horizon, the heat shimmering off the distant mesas. He ran a calloused hand over his weathered face, feeling the grit and worry etched into every line. He wasn't just concerned for his cattle. He was deeply troubled by the news that 7 different Native American tribes were headed his way, all desperate for water. He knew why they were coming. His ranch was one of the few places rumored to still have a well that hadn't completely dried up. The thought of providing for so many filled him with a sense of responsibility, but also a gnawing fear. He barely had enough water for his own livestock, let alone hundreds of people and their animals. Tobias's small house stood as a testament to simpler times. It was a basic structure with a wide porch, providing some relief from the sun. Inside, his wife, Martha, was preparing a meager meal of beans and stale bread. Their children, young Sarah and little Billy, helped her, their faces etched with the same worry that plagued their parents. He thought of his grandfather, a pioneer who had carved this ranch out of the unforgiving land. He remembered stories of cooperation and conflict with the native people. He hoped that this situation wouldn't turn violent. He knew the tribes were desperate, and desperation could make people do things they wouldn't normally consider. He walked to the edge of his property, his boots kicking up puffs of dust. He looked out at the barren landscape, and a heavy sigh escaped his lips. He knew this was more than just a drought. It was a test of his resilience, his compassion, and his ability to survive in a world that seemed determined to break him. He could only hope that he would be able to rise to the challenge and somehow find a way to help everyone in need. The sun continued its scorching descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, a beautiful but mocking reminder of the life-giving water that was so desperately missing. The waiting was the hardest part. Tobias kept a constant watch on the horizon, his eyes scanning for any sign of movement. He knew the tribes would be traveling slowly, burdened by their thirst and the weight of their belongings. But he also knew that their need would drive them onward. He'd heard stories about the different tribes. The Navajo, known for their weaving and shepherding. The Hopi, skilled farmers who coaxed life from the desert. The Apache, fierce warriors and resourceful hunters. Each tribe had its own customs and traditions, but they were all united by their shared dependence on the land. He wondered how they were coping with the drought. He imagined their fields withered, their livestock dying, their families suffering. He knew that they would be looking to him for help, and he felt the weight of that responsibility pressing down on him. Martha did her best to keep the children's spirits up, telling them stories and playing games. But even they could sense the tension in the air. They knew that something big was about to happen, something that could change their lives forever. Tobias tried to prepare as best he could. He checked the well again, rationing the remaining water. He reinforced the fences around the livestock, hoping to prevent any conflicts. He sharpened his axe and cleaned his rifle, a grim reminder of the potential for violence. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the land, Tobias saw something in the distance. A faint cloud of dust, rising slowly into the air. He squinted, trying to make out the shapes beneath the dust. Horses, wagons, people. They were coming. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He knew that he had to be strong, not just for himself, but for his family and for the people who were depending on him. He walked back to the house, his boots crunching on the dry earth. "They're here," he said to Martha, his voice barely a whisper. Martha nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. She hugged the children close, whispering words of comfort and reassurance. Tobias stepped back onto the porch, his hand resting on the handle of his rifle. He watched as the cloud of dust grew closer, slowly revealing the faces of the people who were coming to his ranch, seeking water and hoping for salvation. The fate of his family, and perhaps the entire region, hung in the balance. The first of the tribes arrived as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues. They were a small band of Navajo, their faces etched with weariness. Their leader, a woman with kind eyes and silver hair, approached Tobias cautiously. "We have traveled far," she said, her voice raspy. "We seek water for our people." Tobias nodded, his heart heavy. "I know," he said. "I will share what I have, but it is not much." The woman's eyes flickered with gratitude. "We understand," she said. "Any help is welcome." As the Navajos set up camp, more tribes began to arrive. The Hopi, with their intricate pottery and quiet dignity. The Apache, their faces stoic and watchful. Each group brought its own unique presence to the ranch, creating a strange mix of cultures and expectations. Tobias worked tirelessly, directing them to the well, rationing the water, and trying to maintain order. Martha and the children helped as much as they could, offering food and comfort to the weary travelers. As darkness fell, the ranch was transformed into a sprawling encampment. Campfires flickered in the night, casting dancing shadows on the faces of the assembled tribes. The air was filled with the sounds of unfamiliar languages, the smell of cooking food, and the low murmur of conversation. Tobias sat on the porch, watching the scene unfold before him. He felt a sense of both hope and apprehension. He hoped that he could help these people survive the drought. But he also knew that the situation was volatile. The tribes were desperate, and resources were scarce. It wouldn't take much to ignite a conflict. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the night air. Tobias jumped to his feet, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. He scanned the encampment, trying to locate the source of the noise. Then he saw it, a figure lying motionless on the ground, near the edge of his property. An Apache warrior, wounded and bleeding. Tobias knew that this could be the spark that ignited the tinderbox. He had to act quickly to prevent a disaster. This was Ayanna. He turned to Martha. "Stay here with the children." He grabbed his rifle and a lantern and moved toward the wounded warrior. He knew this was going to be a long night. Tobias knelt beside the wounded warrior, the lantern casting long, distorted shadows. Ayanna was young, barely more than a boy, his face streaked with blood and dust. A deep gash ran across his arm, and his breathing was shallow and ragged. Tobias knew that he should probably alert the other Apache, but something held him back. He saw the fear in Ayanna's eyes, a fear that transcended tribal differences. He knew that if he handed Ayanna over, the warrior might not survive the night. He made a decision. "I'm going to help you," Tobias said, his voice firm but gentle. "But you need to stay quiet." Ayanna nodded weakly, his eyes fixed on Tobias's face. Tobias carefully examined the wound, using his knife to cut away the tattered remains of Ayanna's sleeve. The gash was deep, but it didn't appear to be life-threatening. He knew he had to clean it and bandage it quickly to prevent infection. He looked back toward the house. He knew that Martha would be worried, but he couldn't leave Ayanna alone. He needed her help. "Martha," he called softly, "bring me some clean water and bandages." Martha appeared on the porch a few moments later, her face etched with concern. She hurried over to Tobias, carrying a basin of water and a roll of bandages. "What happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's hurt," Tobias said. "I'm going to try to help him." Martha nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. She knelt beside Tobias and began to clean the wound, her touch gentle and reassuring. As they worked, Tobias noticed something glinting beneath Ayanna's tunic. He carefully lifted the fabric and saw a small pouch tied tightly around Ayanna's neck. He hesitated for a moment, then gently opened the pouch. Inside, he found several small, intricately carved tokens. They were unlike anything he had ever seen before. He knew, instinctively, that they were important. More important than he could possibly imagine, and that Ayanna was in danger because of them. He reclosed the pouch and tucked it back under Ayanna's tunic. "We will talk about this later," he said to Ayanna, who was drifting in and out of consciousness. Right now, his priority was to save the young warrior's life. The arrival of the tribes had brought more than just a thirst for water. it had brought a whole new set of problems. Once Iana's wound was bandaged, Tobias knew he had to give him water. It was a risk, a significant one. Every drop was precious, carefully rationed for his family, his livestock, and now the gathered tribes. He glanced toward the well, its wooden frame silhouetted against the starry sky. He knew he was depleting his reserves, but he couldn't deny a wounded man water. He filled a small cup and gently raised Iana's head, helping him to drink. Iana swallowed gratefully, his eyes closing in relief. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice still weak. "Rest," Tobias said. "We'll talk more in the morning." Tobias and Martha helped Iana into their small house, laying him on a makeshift bed of blankets. They knew that sheltering him was a dangerous decision. If the other Apache found out, they might accuse Tobias of harboring a traitor. But they couldn't leave him outside, vulnerable and alone. Martha brought a small amount of water for Sarah and Billy, explaining that they needed to conserve as much as possible. The children understood, their young faces filled with a seriousness beyond their years. They knew the importance of every single drop. As Tobias sat vigil beside Iana, he thought about the tokens he had seen. He had heard rumors of such things, sacred objects that held immense power within the tribes. He wondered why Iana was carrying them and what it meant for the delicate balance of peace in the region. He knew that he had stumbled into something far bigger than a simple drought. He had become entangled in a web of tribal politics, ancient rivalries, and potential war. And he was determined to do whatever he could to prevent it from unraveling. Sleep evaded him. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl of a coyote set his nerves on edge. He kept a close watch on Iana, ready to defend him if necessary. Before dawn broke, Iana stirred. He looked at Tobias, his eyes clear and focused. "I must leave," he said, his voice stronger now. "You're not well enough," Tobias protested. "I have no choice," Iana said. "Those tokens, they're not safe here. They're not safe with me." Tobias knew that Iana was right. He had to help him. He had to protect those tokens, whatever they were. He had to prevent the war that they threatened to ignite. And it was going to take more than just compassion. It was going to take courage, cunning, and a willingness to risk everything. He looked at Iana and nodded. It was time to act. As the first rays of dawn painted the eastern sky, Iana, though still weak, explained the significance of the tokens. "These are war tokens," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Each one represents a different tribe. They are sacred. They show allegiance and promise peace." He paused, taking a ragged breath. "But now, they are a weapon. A powerful man wants to unite the tribes, not for peace, but for war. He wants to drive the white man from this land, no matter the cost." Tobias listened intently, his brow furrowed. "Who wants this war?" "A medicine man," Iana replied. "He is twisted by hate. He believes the tokens will give him the power to control the tribes. He seeks to use them to rally the tribes against the U.S. Army. Many will die." "And you stole them?" Tobias asked. Iana nodded. "I could not let him use them for evil. But now he hunts me. He will stop at nothing to get them back." He then explained that the medicine man had spread lies, claiming the U.S. Army was planning to attack the tribes, regardless of whether they were peaceful or not. This misinformation, combined with the desperation caused by the drought, had created a volatile situation, ready to explode into violence. The mention of the U.S. Army sent a chill down Tobias's spine. He knew that if the tribes united against the army, the consequences would be devastating. Innocent people would die, and the fragile peace of the region would be shattered. "The army," Tobias said, "they don't know about this, do they?" "No, I cannot reply. If they knew about the tokens, they would try to take them. That would only make things worse. The tribes would see it as an act of aggression." Tobias understood the gravity of the situation. He was caught between two powerful forces, a rogue medicine man intent on war and a U.S. army that could inadvertently trigger a massacre. And he, a simple rancher, was the only one who knew the truth. He looked at Iana, his eyes filled with determination. "We have to get these tokens to someone who can stop this war," he said. "Someone the tribes trust." Someone the army will listen to. Iona nodded. There is one, he said, a tribal elder, wise and respected. He lives far to the north, near the mountains. But the journey is dangerous. Tobias knew that the journey would be perilous, but he had no choice. He had to protect his family, his neighbors, and the fragile peace of the region. He had to help Iona deliver the tokens to the elder. He had to prevent the war, and he had to do it now, before it was too late. He looked at Iona and said, "Then we leave immediately." Tobias knew that leaving the ranch would raise questions, but he had to be discreet. He told Martha they were going to scout for water, hoping to find a new source for everyone. He entrusted her with the care of Sarah and Billy, reminding her to be cautious and avoid any unnecessary contact with the tribes. As Tobias and Iona prepared to leave, the atmosphere at the ranch was thick with unease. The tribes were growing restless, their patience wearing thin. The water was dwindling faster than expected, and the food supplies were running low. Small arguments flared up between different groups, fueled by hunger and desperation. Tobias noticed that the Apache were particularly agitated. They spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously around the encampment. He suspected that they were searching for Iona, unaware that he was hiding in Tobias's house. He led Iona to the stables, saddling 2 of his strongest horses. He packed a small amount of food and water, enough to last them for a few days. He strapped his rifle to his saddle, his hand instinctively checking the action. As they rode out of the ranch, Tobias could feel the weight of the tribe's watchful eyes upon them. He knew that they were taking a gamble, leaving their safety in Martha's hands. But he had no choice. The fate of the region depended on their success. They rode hard, pushing their horses through the rugged terrain. They avoided the main trails, sticking to the shadows and using the natural cover to conceal their movements. Tobias knew that they were being hunted, and he couldn't afford to take any chances. As they traveled, Iona shared more details about the medicine man and his plans. He revealed that the medicine man had spies within each of the tribes, feeding him information and spreading his propaganda. He also warned Tobias that the medicine man was ruthless and would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. Tobias realized that they were not just fighting against a man, they were fighting against an idea, a dangerous ideology that threatened to consume the entire region. And he knew that their journey would be long and arduous, filled with peril and uncertainty. That evening, as they made camp in a secluded canyon, Tobias noticed a flicker of movement in the distance. He grabbed his rifle, his senses on high alert. He knew that they had been found. The hunt was on. He whispered to Iona to take cover and prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The medicine man's reach was longer than he had imagined. The figures emerged from the shadows, their faces grim and determined. They were Apache warriors, led by a towering man with a stern gaze, Chief Running Bear. Tobias recognized him from stories told around campfires, a respected leader known for his wisdom and his ferocity in battle. "Crow," Running Bear said, his voice deep and resonant, "we seek Iona. We know he came to your ranch. We also know that he is wounded." Tobias remained calm, his hand still resting on his rifle. "Iona was wounded when I found him," he said. "I helped him. He's gone now." Running Bear's eyes narrowed. "Gone where? Did you harm him, Crow? Did you steal something from him?" "I did not harm him," Tobias insisted. "I gave him water and shelter. He left of his own accord." He knew he couldn't reveal the truth about the tokens without endangering Iona and himself. Running Bear stepped closer, his warriors surrounding Tobias and Iona. The tension in the canyon was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "We do not believe you, Crow. We have heard stories of your kind, stories of betrayal and deceit." Iona stepped forward, his voice surprisingly strong. "He speaks the truth, Chief. Crow, help me. He is not our enemy." Running Bear turned to Iona, his expression softening slightly. "Iona, what happened? Why were you wounded? Why did you leave your tribe?" Iona hesitated, glancing at Tobias. He knew that revealing the truth about the medicine man would be dangerous, but he also knew that he had no choice. He had to trust Running Bear. "I carry something that does not belong to me, Chief," Iona said. something that could bring war to all the tribes. I was trying to protect it. Running Bear's eyes widened. War tokens, he whispered. Ayana nodded. The medicine man seeks to use them to unite the tribes against the white man. He spreads lies and hatred. I cannot let him do it. Running Bear was silent for a long moment, his face etched with concern. He knew that the medicine man was a dangerous and influential figure. He also knew that the tribes were on the brink of war. The drought had made them desperate, and the medicine man's message of hate had resonated with many. If what you say is true, Ayana, Running Bear said, then we must stop him. But first, we must be sure that Crow is not involved. He is a white man. How can we trust him? He looked piercingly at Tobias. Why did you help Ayana, Crow? What is your interest in this? Tobias met Running Bear's gaze, his own steady and unwavering. I helped Ayana because he was wounded and needed help, he said. I would have done the same for anyone, regardless of their tribe or their color. He paused, taking a deep breath. I know there is distrust between our peoples. I know that many white men have broken their promises and harmed the tribes. But I'm not one of them. I believe in fairness and justice. I believe in helping those in need. He then told Running Bear about his grandfather, who had taught him to respect the land and its people. He spoke of the stories he had heard around the campfire, stories of cooperation and conflict, of friendship and betrayal. He explained that he had always tried to live by the principles of honesty and integrity. I know the words are cheap, Tobias said, but I ask you to look into my heart, Running Bear. See if you can find any deceit there. See if you can find any hatred. I am just a simple rancher, trying to survive in a difficult world. I want nothing more than peace and prosperity for everyone. Running Bear studied Tobias for a long moment, his eyes searching for any sign of deception. He saw the sincerity in Tobias's face, the honesty in his words. He also saw the fear in his eyes, the fear for his family and for the future of the region. Finally, Running Bear spoke. I have seen enough, Crow, he said. I believe you speak the truth, but that does not mean I trust you completely. You are still a white man, and you are still involved in something that is very dangerous. He turned to Ayana. If what you say about the medicine man is true, then we must act quickly. He must be stopped before he can ignite a war. He looked back at Tobias. I will allow you to come with us, Crow, but you will be watched. If you betray us, you will pay the price. Tobias nodded, accepting Running Bear's terms. He knew that he was walking a dangerous path, but he had no choice. He had to help stop the medicine man and prevent the war. Running Bear gestured to his warriors. We ride for the medicine man's camp, he said. We will confront him and expose his lies. We will show the tribes that he is not their savior, but their destroyer. As they mounted their horses and prepared to leave, Tobias knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with peril. They were riding into the heart of darkness, into a world of tribal politics, ancient rivalries, and deadly secrets. And he, a simple rancher, was about to become a key player in a drama that could change the fate of the entire region. He hoped he was up to the task. As they rode, Tobias, remembering something Ayana had mentioned, spoke to Running Bear. There is something you need to know, Chief, he said, his voice low. Ayana told me that the medicine man has spies within each of the tribes. But he also said something else, something about a betrayal within your own ranks. Running Bear frowned. What do you mean? Ayana said that the medicine man has promised power and wealth to certain members of your tribe in exchange for their loyalty. He plans to use them to betray you, to turn your own warriors against you. Running Bear reined in his horse, his face darkening with anger. Who are these traitors? Ayana did not know their names, Tobias replied. But he said that they are close to you, men you trust. Running Bear was silent for a long moment, his eyes scanning the faces of his warriors. He knew that Tobias's words could be true. He had sensed a growing unease within his tribe, a subtle shift in loyalty. But he had never suspected that it was a result of betrayal. If this is true, Running Bear said, his voice low and menacing, then those traitors will pay a heavy price. He summoned his lieutenant, a grizzled warrior named Black Hawk. Black Hawk, he said, I want you to watch our warriors closely. Look for any sign of disloyalty. If you find anyone who is working with the medicine man, bring them to me. They will face my judgment. Black Hawk nodded grimly and rode off to carry out Running Bear's orders. The atmosphere within the war party became even more tense as suspicion and distrust spread like wildfire. As they continued their journey, Tobias explained what he knew about the medicine man's plans. He said that the medicine man intended to lure the U.S. Army into a trap, using the tribes as bait. He planned to massacre the soldiers, then blame the attack on Running Bear and his warriors. This would ignite a full-scale war between the tribes and the army, giving the medicine man the power he craved. Running Bear listened intently, his anger growing with each passing word. He realized that the medicine man was not just a threat to the tribes. He was a threat to the entire region. He had to be stopped, no matter the cost. As they approached the medicine man's camp, Running Bear ordered his warriors to prepare for battle. He knew that they were walking into a trap, but he had no choice. He had to confront the medicine man and expose his lies before it was too late. He turned to Tobias, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Thank you, Crow," he said. "You have shown me the truth. But remember, my eyes are still on you." Then, turning to his warriors, he yelled, "For the Apache, for our freedom. Let's ride." The medicine man's camp was a chaotic scene of activity. Warriors from various tribes milled about, their faces painted for war. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs and the sound of chanting. In the center of the camp, the medicine man stood before a large bonfire, his eyes gleaming with fanaticism. Running Bear and his warriors charged into the camp, their war cries echoing through the canyon. The battle was fierce and brutal. The medicine man's followers fought with a desperate fervor, fueled by his lies and promises. Tobias fought alongside the Apache, his rifle spitting fire and lead. He knew that they were outnumbered, but he also knew that they were fighting for the right cause. He saw Black Hawk confronting one of Running Bear's most trusted warriors, a clear sign of the betrayal Ayanna had mentioned. As the battle raged, Tobias saw the medicine man slip away, heading toward the hidden canyon where a detachment of U.S. Army soldiers was waiting in ambush. Tobias knew that if the medicine man reached them, the massacre would begin. Without hesitation, Tobias broke away from the fighting and raced after the medicine man. He spurred his horse forward, dodging arrows and bullets. He finally caught up to the medicine man just as he was about to enter the canyon. Tobias leaped from his horse, tackling the medicine man to the ground. The two men wrestled fiercely, their bodies covered in dust and sweat. The medicine man was strong and agile, but Tobias was determined. He knew that the fate of the region rested on his shoulders. Finally, Tobias managed to overpower the medicine man, pinning him to the ground. He raised his fist, ready to strike the final blow. But then he hesitated. He knew that killing the medicine man would not solve anything. It would only create more hatred and more violence. Instead, Tobias shouted at the top of his lungs, alerting the U.S. Army soldiers to the trap. He explained the medicine man's plan, telling them that they were being used as pawns in a deadly game. The soldiers, stunned by Tobias's words, hesitated. They saw the sincerity in his face, the honesty in his eyes. They also saw the Apache warriors, poised for battle but holding their fire. After a tense standoff, the U.S. Army commander made a decision. He ordered his soldiers to stand down, refusing to participate in the medicine man's massacre. The medicine man, realizing that his plan had failed, let out a scream of rage and despair. He tried to rally his followers, but it was too late. The tribes had seen the truth. They had seen that the medicine man was a liar and a manipulator. They turned against him, their anger and resentment finally unleashed. The tribes knew that a war with the U.S. Army would decimate their people. The battle ended swiftly, with the medicine man and his remaining followers being captured. The threat of war had been averted, thanks to Tobias's bravery and quick thinking. The tribes knew they had to work together to rebuild what the medicine man had tried to destroy. Running Bear approached Tobias, his face filled with gratitude. "You have saved us all, Crow," he said. "You have proven that you are a true friend to the Apache." He extended his hand, and Tobias shook it firmly. A lasting bond was formed that day. The end of the battle signaled a new beginning. The days that followed were filled with healing and reconciliation. The tribes, united by their shared ordeal, began to rebuild their trust and cooperation. Running Bear, with Tobias at his side, traveled from camp to camp, spreading the truth about the medicine man and urging the tribes to work together for a better future. The Apache people, in particular, were deeply grateful to Tobias. They had witnessed his bravery firsthand, his willingness to risk his life to save them from a terrible fate. They saw him not as a white man, but as a friend, an ally, and a brother. They honored him with a special ceremony, bestowing upon him the name Crow Who Walks with Courage. They presented him with gifts of handcrafted blankets, intricately carved pipes, and other symbols of their respect and admiration. Ayana, now fully recovered from his wounds, became a close friend of Tobias. He served as a translator and a guide, helping Tobias to understand the customs and traditions of the Apache people. He also shared stories of his own life, his hopes and dreams for the future. Tobias, in turn, shared his own stories with the Apache, telling them about his family, his ranch, and his love for the land. He spoke of his desire for peace and prosperity for all, regardless of their race or their background. The Apache people listened intently, their hearts touched by Tobias's sincerity. They realized that he was a man of integrity, a man who truly cared about their well-being. They knew that they could trust him, that he would always stand by their side. As the days turned into weeks, the drought began to ease. Rain clouds gathered in the sky, and the parched earth drank deeply. The creeks and rivers began to flow again, bringing life back to the land. The tribe celebrated the return of the water with a joyous festival, filled with dancing, singing, and feasting. They thanked the Great Spirit for his blessings and renewed their commitment to working together for a brighter future. Tobias stood on a nearby hill, watching the celebration unfold below. He felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over him. He had come to this land seeking only to survive, but he had found something far more valuable: friendship, respect, and a sense of belonging. He had earned the respect of the Apache people, and that was a reward more precious than any gold. He knew that he would never forget his time with them, and that he would always cherish the bonds that they had forged. He knew his life was forever changed. The drought was ending, and so was a long period of distrust. Sense of renewal. As a final act of gratitude, the Apache people revealed to Tobias a hidden canyon, known only to a select few. Deep within the canyon, nestled amongst the towering red rocks, lay a vein of gold, untouched for centuries. "This gold is yours, Crow Who Walks with Courage," Running Bear said, his voice filled with sincerity. "It is a gift from our people, a token of our appreciation for your bravery and your friendship. Use it wisely to rebuild your ranch and to provide for your family." Tobias was overwhelmed by the generosity of the Apache people. He knew that the gold would be enough to secure his family's future for generations to come. But more than the gold, he valued the friendship and respect that he had earned. With the medicine man gone, the tribe began to forge a lasting peace. They established a council of elders, representing each of the different groups, to resolve disputes and make decisions that affected the entire region. They agreed to share resources and to cooperate in times of need. They also reached out to the U.S. Army, seeking to establish a relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. Tobias played a key role in these negotiations, serving as a bridge between the tribes and the army. He used his knowledge of both cultures to help them understand each other's perspectives and to find common ground. Over time, the region began to thrive. The drought ended the land,